The Economic Community of West African States is ECOWAS, and in the last few days, they are back in the news. It has been fragile for a very long time, and Togo is testing it. Togo is on the brink and pushing ECOWAS to its very limits. Why is this important? We are Togo's neighbors. We are the closest to Togo, culturally, geographically, and so it is very important. Economically, we are very interwoven in what we do. Now, why really is this important as far as we're concerned, and why has Togo been on fire over the last 26 days? Where we've seen political unrest there, it's a long time indeed, almost a month. And this has been going on until we saw these numbers. 7 dead, including 2 minors, 50 arrested, and you must have seen the protests on social media. Togolese are upset. They are angry. Why? Because it's been 58 years since one family dominated and captured the entire country. 58 years. Just pause for a second. And now we've seen an uprising. But the key question is, will this last? The Nyasingbes, they know how to survive. They've been there 38 years. That's the Nyasingbes senior. And for 20 years. They've mastered the art of staying in power, dancing on the heads of snakes. As one very powerful ruler in the Middle East once said, as far as Syria is concerned, they know how to survive. And they have been surviving. They've seen their fair share of protests in the past. Opposition leaders who believe they can take over power through legitimate means. It's never happened. But this is why this is important. And why the ECOWAS project is currently still very challenged. Because already, as we know, 3 West African countries have pulled away from ECOWAS already. And coincidentally, the 3 of them are all French-speaking countries colonized by France. And then we see another one on the brink tonight because of these 2 gentlemen. One who has stayed in power for 38 years, died and handed over to the son who's now there for 20 years. The police say they're tired. Legitimately so. Let's look at what has happened over the last few days, assuming you haven't heard. We know that you can trace this all the way back to Parliament adopting this new, very controversial constitution. And that constitution, by the way, that was amended, gives the Faure Gnassingbé lifelong presidency. I mean, he is going to be there forever, unless he chooses for some very interesting reason to let go, right? So he etched himself as the president of the Togolese Republic for life. And then the party goes to the parliament. They win majority in parliament, in Togolese elections. Then you have, Faure then becomes the president of the Council of Ministers, and that is the constitutional change that allows this to happen, and that allows him, guarantees him to stay there forever. And then you have the Sabin Togo becoming the presidential ceremonial president, and Togo suspends the French international news outlets because, of course, that tension that we've seen between the French-speaking countries and France also playing out there. And this is what has spilled over into the riots that we are seeing in Togo. But you also see the Togolese government responding to this, and they all do, blaming foreign entities for what is happening locally, not blaming themselves. They actually then said in a statement that dead bodies that were found, including the 7, were as a result of drowning and not murder. But we know that that story isn't exactly the case. But this is the ECOWAS dilemma. They see this unfold. They saw this unfold in Mali. They saw this unfold in Niger and Burkina Faso, and the military stepped in. I mean, and they were very quiet. They found their voice somewhat in this particular scenario, but they're saying very, very little, urging all stakeholders to choose restraint, right? And embrace dialogue, they say, for lasting peace. The people want change. Why is ECOWAS not calling out for Gnassingbé, asking him to step aside? But why did he also look on for him to change the constitution, to give himself a lifetime presidency? And they waited this long for this to erupt before they found their voice. We'll analyze that pretty shortly and give you some interesting perspectives on this from my panelists who are joining me, right? The African Union has been very loudly quiet on the particular subject, but again, it tells its own story. But this is the map I wanted to show you, and the map tells a very important story. This is Mali, this is Burkina Faso, this is Niger. All of them have had their own fair share of unrest, and we know that the military then took advantage of that and took over the reins of power, and they cut ties with ECOWAS, but also cut ties with France. Many say the cutting ties with France bit was very good, but in doing so, they brought in the Russians into play. So again, go there and let's talk to the citizens and let's find out if this really had brought any dividends that the democracy did not deliver. That's a very important point. And now we have Ghana, now we have Togo straddling us there, and Togo currently is also on fire, right? So that is a very interesting scenario there. And then you look at the factors that have led to the unrest in this particular region here, the three who broke away and formed their own Sahelian union, if you like. The collapse of public trust is a key thing in government. It's a very key thing. And the same story we're seeing in Togo, right? So you don't be surprised if the Togolese defense forces decide, for example, that they will take advantage of this protest and to overthrow the current government. And in many, many people's eyes, the Gnassingbé presidency is illegitimate, right? And so if you remove one illegitimacy with another one, well, all the better, some may argue. Then they say youth-led protest has been the thing that has fueled the power of social media. Coup d'etat then begin to follow. But for the Ghanaian interests, one thing that we wanted to look at was this import-export scenario. That if you look at the lines here that tells the story, exports is this, exporting quite a bit, and then we're importing there, right? So if there's something happens there, it may have a blowback economically because we export quite a bit there, but then there'll also be the potential of a crisis in terms of the inflow of refugees that will come into Ghana because of that intimate cultural relationship that we have there. So we obviously, we are big brothers, if you like, with Nigeria and the SAP region. You're wondering what should our response be to what is happening in Togo? Should our president be more frontal with this particular matter and show a hand of leadership and call out for Gnassingbé as direct as it should be, or we should just mind our business as we've always done as far as our foreign policy objectives and policies concerned? And that is a very fascinating place where we are right now. But again, if we don't do anything and this degenerates into another coup d'etat very, very close to us like Burkina Faso is, then we're almost going to be sandwiched, right, by that. And so we have a stake in this. And so what should Ghana do? Then there's also the top imports that we see there from Togo, that we see refined petroleum, gas, palm and vegetable oil, the reserved meat and rice, all coming in and from Togo. So we need to have a big conversation about this. And we just spend some time. So, well, this doesn't affect me. It does. It does, for the reasons I've explained. Because ECOWAS itself, the ECOWAS project has disintegrated. And this risk, again, ECOWAS is struggling for relevance. And this is just one more blow to it. And we understand from the ECOWAS community that they are meeting tomorrow to consider their response and what to do, etc. And they know everybody's watching what ECOWAS does. Everybody's watching what AU does in this matter. And what is Ghana's own role in this? What should our role be? My guest will join me for a conversation after this. Stay with me.